Hello and welcome to the album review show with me, Paul.
And me, Mark.
This week we're reviewing Celeste's Not Your Muse. We go through some of the production, some of the songwriting, and we have a chat about an album that's just got to number one, so stick around and have a listen to the rest of the episode. So have you got a track of the week this week, Mark?
Yeah, my track of the week this week is from Middle Kids. They're a three-piece band from Sydney, sort of rock indie style, and it's called Cellophane, Brain in brackets. And it's such a great track. It's built for like big crowds to sing along to at festivals, I think. It's quite emotive songwriting, and it's a really like powerful vocal performance from the singer. Definitely worth checking out. I saw them live at the Great Escape in Brighton in 2017, I think. I heard them on a playlist on the drive down and thought, I'll definitely go and check them out. And managed to get into the gig, and they blew me socks off. They were really, really great band and worth checking out. And they've got an album coming out. It's their second album on March the 19th.
Yeah, this one's one that I wanted to get in there before you did, really. But as you introduced me to the band, I had to concede and let you have this as a track of the week. But it is an absolutely brilliant track. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so what's your track of the week this week?
My track of the week this week is Got Me Worried by Django. It's a record that I just really... It comes off their latest record, essentially, and I was struggled to pick one track off it, so I just kind of picked a random tune off it. I just really enjoyed the whole record, but this one's really great. It's kind of a sing-alongy, psyche kind of vibe, just really great, positive music. So yeah, this one's one that I really enjoyed.
Newcomer Celeste's debut studio album, titled Not Your Muse, was released on 29th of January 2021 and debuted at number one on the UK Albums Chart. With it, Celeste became the first British female artist in 5 years to have a number one debut on the UK Albums Chart. Celeste Epiphany Waite was born in California. Following her parents' separation, Celeste moved to her mother's native United Kingdom, settling in Dagenham at the age of 3, before moving to Brighton at the age of 5, where she spent most of her early years. Her father unfortunately died of lung cancer when she was just 16. He was only 49. As a teenager, Celeste would write music and perform in bands. She accidentally wrote her first song, Sirens, with her former bandmates at the age of 16. The song was inspired by the death of her father and was published to YouTube, where it caught the attention of her current manager. While her friends asked for driving lessons for their 18th birthday, she instead asked for a MacBook, which she could use to begin recording herself on GarageBand. In 2015, she featured on Avicii's song Touch Me, prior to making her debut as a solo artist. It was during this time that Celeste toured as a vocalist for electronic duo Real Lies while they supported Foals. In 2017, Celeste moved to London with only £100, and she was fired from her job as she would regularly skip work to instead make music. She told the BBC, "I'd rather call in sick and go to the studio than have the money for that month." In 2018, she signed to Polydor Records after catching the attention of singer-songwriter Michael Kiwanuka, who was already on the label. She made her television debut when she performed her song Strange on an episode of Later with Jules Holland on the 24th of October 2019. In November of that year, Elton John added Strange and She's My Sunshine to his personal Apple Music playlist. Celeste gained support from English television personality James Corden after he tweeted, "I cannot stop listening to Celeste. This is her song Strange. It's sensational. I dare you not to love her. I dare you." In the same month, she sold out a 3-night residency at O'Meara in London before embarking on a tour supporting Michael Kiwanuka. On the 3rd of December 2019, Celeste won the BBC Music Award for BBC Music Introducing Artists of the Year. Following on from that, on the 9th of January 2020, Celeste was announced as the winner of BBC's Music Poll Sound of 2020, before she released her first single of the year, Stop This Flame, which went on to become the sound of Sky Sports' Premier League campaign. In April 2020, she performed Strange in the Adele slot at the Brit Awards after winning the Newcomer Award. Most of the songs on Not Your Muse were written by Celeste herself and producer of the album, Jamie Hartman, who also co-wrote the song Human with Rag & Bone Man. Celeste revealed that the tracks on Not Your Muse were written and recorded without the intention of commercial success, but rather with creating what she wanted it to be. She was quoted as saying, "The album is the power I found when I felt powerless. In making this album, I have allowed myself to arrive at a place where I feel empowered, fiercely wide-eyed and fulfilled. I'm very proud of what I achieved on my debut album, and to be in this position after the year it has been, I feel nothing but gratitude and excitement. I hope you enjoy it." Okay, so on to the album this week. Celeste, Not Your Muse. How did you find it in general?
In general, it's a phenomenal piece of work. I think first listen, I struggled to get a kind of theme or cohesion from the album. Don't get me wrong, like each track is fantastic, but I just found that I was struggling to get like them thematic threads that run through the record that tie it all together, if you know what I mean. It just seemed like a first record of someone who's been knocking about in the industry for a little bit. It seemed like they just picked a load of her really, really good songs and put them on a record. I think the length of the record led me to that as well. There's a lot of kind of like, obviously with the deluxe record, it's, I don't know, 18 tracks long or something, isn't it? So it just felt like they'd plonked a load of singles on there, if that makes sense. But moving through the record a little bit more, giving it that time and giving it the attention it deserves, I did start to find a theme running through, and I started to really follow it, and the storytelling in the record started to really make sense to me, and there seemed to be like a power struggle between two characters throughout the whole record. That's just what I kind of found from it. But don't get me wrong, this record is sublime. The vocals on this record are just on another level, I think. Obviously we've covered a few really, really good singers, haven't we? And like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift and people like this, but this is on another level, I think. How did you find it?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to you, really. I should say the main thing to take away from the album is that she's got a phenomenal voice, and you know, she's such a talent. Yeah, it's really impressive performance from her, and I'll sort of save my like verdict overall on the album until the conclusions later on. But yeah, some really great songs on there, some maybe not so great songs on there, but yeah, overall a brilliant album, and a brilliant first album. You know, it's such a good debut album, really.
Yeah, I think arguably the second half of this record is where it really starts to hit, I think. And it might just be a personal preference thing, but there's some tracks in the second half, and they really just envelop me a little bit, to be honest. And it just gets all of my attention, every part of it. The musicality, kind of, it seems like in the second half of the record there's possibly less influence of record company, and the artists that are involved in making the record are given free rein a little bit more. The musicality really starts to come through in the second half. Her vocals starts to become a little bit more playful, a little bit more, if you can think kind of Amy Winehouse live, that jazzy, scatty kind of playfulness that's so effortless. And as I say, the form structure of the songs starts to become a little bit more interesting as well. And that's why I think the second half of this record for me is where it really starts to come to life, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there was a quote that I mentioned in the little introduction to Celeste earlier on that, she mentioned that the songs were written and recorded without the intention of commercial success, which is possibly debatable. I don't know if that's completely true or not, but
I just kind of struggle with that in that it's kind of a personal, it's something that I like to ask artists, to be honest, because I kind of don't think you can make art nowadays with the sole intention to just make art. I think that's a fallacy. I don't think that's true in any case. No. Unless you never show your work to anyone.
Yeah.
That's the only way that could possibly be the case. If that, do you know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a contentious issue in the art world. This has gotten deep quite quickly, hasn't it? But it's a bit of an existential question in the artwork. Do you make art for yourself, or do you make it for other people to digest? Because I personally think that art becomes art when someone else sees art in it. Yeah. So art requires an audience. So writing songs without the idea of commercial success, when possibly you're already signed to a label, the two things don't marry up for me.
Yeah, especially when she was sort of topping the polls of every tipster's one to watch for 2020.
Sounds a bit like A&R talk to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the album itself sort of flits between like tug at the heartstring moments and nice slinky pop tunes, doesn't it really? Yeah,
as I said before, there's this... I started to pick up this feeling of power, this transition of power between two characters throughout the whole record. And sometimes it's her looking inward and seeing what kind of power does she have on the rest of the world and that kind of thing. And I might be way off here, but this is just the sort of things that I started to pick up on. Ideal Woman, it opens the record and it really sets the tone of the record. I think it's got this like really close jazzy production that makes you feel like you're almost in the room with the band and she's in there singing, you know. It gives an insight into what's to come, I think, with the production mainly, but also with this thematic power struggle. She's saying, you know, I might not be your ideal woman, and I'm never going to be that. I'm just who I am, you know, and it's almost setting the playing field for this struggle to come later on in the record. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think now you mention Ideal Woman, it's sort of bookended the album, isn't it? Between arguably both of the sort of rawest tracks on the album, Ideal Woman and Some Goodbyes Come With Hello, which is the album ender. And there's an argument to say that they're sort of the best two tracks in terms of showing off true ability and showing off maybe what she is as an artist, rather than some of the poppier songs on there, which may have been written for commercial success.
Yeah, this might come across as a bit over myself or whatever, but the poppier ones I kind of skipped over a little bit. They're the ones where I just feel like maybe her and the band aren't at their best. It's more of like a chop shoppy kind of thing. Don't be wrong, there's some really, really great stuff in there, but like, for example, what was the one that she had on the Christmas tune? A Little Love doesn't really do a lot for me. It seems like it's been written for a Christmas record, like a Christmas advert, if you know what I mean, with that in mind.
I think I think it was, to be honest. I think it's the first time John Lewis has sort of let someone write their own original song for the advert. Yeah,
as I say, it just did. There was parts of the record, and I'm trying to find the light and shade of the record because I really, really enjoyed the whole record, but I don't want to just have a program where we eulogize about it for 40 minutes.
But over in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to find the things that maybe didn't strike so much of a chord with me, and these poppier ones were ones where, as I say, they seemed a little bit forced, and I think the record could have done a little bit better without them. It kind of broke the rhythm sometimes a little bit for me. If that, you know, there was a flow starting, and then they'd throw in that like the Christmas song, and I'm going, that didn't feel right. And that's where the kind of compilation of hits from the last 18 months of her being in the music industry is that's where that feeling came from, if that, if you can call that.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to say as well that some of the tracks on there, as we say, the poppier ones, were sort of written with syncs in mind. She's obviously got the John Lewis Christmas advert. Tonight is a really like syncable song. You could hear that on like an M&S advert or something. Stop This Flame was obviously picked up by Sky Sports for the Premier League campaign. So I think, them songs, I know it's unfair to sort of compare it, but I did find myself comparing a lot on this album to other artists. And, you could see shades of Adele and Amy Winehouse in jazzier songs like Ideal Woman and Some Goodbyes, Come With Hellos. But then sort of the other end of the spectrum, maybe Paloma Faith in those type of, Tonight, Stop This Flame.
Yeah, you bang on there. Like, she's tried to, or the team have obviously tried to expand like her dynasty a little bit. And I mean, really, to release your debut album and to be like in the conversation with those three artists is phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, that's a compliment in itself. We're not, and when we say we're comparing her to these artists, it's because there's no one else to compare her to. I just feel like, anyone else in the charts, I just feel like, meh. You listen to this record and it's up there with those artists. It's a compliment that we're saying, oh, it's a little bit like Amy Winehouse, it's a little bit like Adele in places, and Paloma Faith and stuff. It's a huge, huge compliment, and we're not trying to take anything away from Celeste. We're, trying to give her a platform in that respect. But it's hard, isn't it, with like a relatively new artist to say, she's great, go and listen to her. Yeah. With no reference whatsoever to who else. If you really like Adele, you'll really like this. That kind of thing. You need a bit of a reference point sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, especially as you say, it is a compliment. There's only a handful of performers you can pick out to compare her with, and that's because she's got an incredible voice and arguably a voice of a generation coming up with the right sort of handling of her career. So, so, as you say, compliment, not a negative.
Yeah, one thing that I really did enjoy was listening to what direction the kind of poppier ones were taking. There seemed to be a real like Mark Ronson-esque sound to some of them, especially Tonight. I think that one was more like direct in that frame of like the breakbeat sound on the drums, and there's a bit more energy, and there just seemed to be like a vibe of this Mark Ronson production style, and it was really nice to see like another take on that kind of production style, if you know what I mean. And I forget the guy's name now who was involved with most of the songs.
Jamie Hartman.
That's it, yeah, Jamie Hartman. He's obviously done a very, very good job at like picking tones and themes in the music that keep the album together, if you know what I mean. Where in places where the album feels quite disjointed, as I said before, with the Christmas tune and that kind of thing, he's done a really good job at keeping it seem like the same album sonically, and I really enjoy that like continuity throughout the record with the musicality and the same. It's easy with a pop record to kind of go, oh, we'll bang a load of synths on this one, or we'll go and get an orchestra for this one, and blah 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 blah. But they've kept it really kind of in line and neat and tidy, and I think that's a really great thing that the production team have done. Yeah,
definitely. I think Love Is Back is another one that was my personal favourite on the record. That was one of the poppier songs that I loved, and it definitely had them shades of Mark Ronson, Amy Winehouse. Back to Black album, wonderful song, and that was probably the one that caught my attention of Celeste. Yeah, definitely, I think my favourite on the album. Have you got a personal like favourite song on the album?
Yeah, mine would have to be Some Goodbyes Come With Hellos. It was the one like on first listen that just really struck me. As soon as that guitar started, I knew it was going to be my favourite song on the record. I don't know what it was, but there was just something about the chord changes, and it got me like excited. I don't know why. It was just a feeling, and every time I listen to the whole record, I just can't wait to get to the end. Obviously I enjoy listening to it, but when I get to the end and that comes on, it's almost playful, and as you said before, it really bookends the album really well. With Tonight, is it Tonight? That's Ideal Woman. It bookends the record so well. Even with the name, there's a bit of a Beatles "Hello Goodbye" moment. She's saying like hello and goodbye in the song, and there's just this feeling of like her relinquishing the power that was, she's letting go almost. Do you know what I mean? She's saying, sometimes we can't choose, and there's stuff that we can't have power over. And that's where I think on second or third listen, that theme, the penny dropped in that last song, and it was this her just letting go and saying, sometimes you just can't control stuff. And it was a really lovely moment that I had with myself, if you know what I mean. Just, oh. Yeah, that's my favourite song on the record, definitely.
Yeah, it's got quite like a relaxed acoustic-y instrumentation to it, hasn't it? And it really sort of allows the full focus to be on her performance and her delivery. And, you know, she turns... They are good lyrics, but she just turns them into sort of like real gut-wrenching moments.
Do you know, I think that's like a thing that she does throughout the whole record, is that she turns what are maybe mediocre or nothingy lyrics into something that you just want to listen to. I think in anyone else's mouth, they'd be quite forgettable. But the way she delivers them is what matters. And it's something that you can really grasp onto. Yeah, it's amazing that you've picked that out as well, because, you know, I sometimes when I'm doing my research for these albums, I have the lyrics up while I'm listening. You know, on my fourth or fifth listen, I'll have the lyrics up and I'll try and really dig deep into these records. And while I had the lyrics up, I was thinking, in anyone else's mouth, this wouldn't work. Yeah. This is just a bit, it's a bit like easy. It's a bit forgettable, but she delivers it with such ease and such intent. It matters. It means something more, you know. The Promise is probably like my second favourite. You can tell that I really enjoy the second half of this record. But yeah, it's all about like the tone and the vibe and the feeling of that song. It's really not about the content of the lyrics. It's about what happens around that, if that makes sense. I love that they create an environment for that song. Like, it literally sounds like they've recorded an outside space somewhere, haven't they? You can hear like atmosphere. You can hear bugs chirping or grass or wind through the grass or something. You know, it puts you in a place that for the rest of the song, it keeps you in that place, and it keeps you in this feeling of like calmness and serenity for me, you know. The flute is just incredible. That drum break in The Promise, that really deep low bass drum that seems to like envelop the song, but somehow works. Everything else has got space. The outro is really, really interesting, and then they come back in with that like environmental soundscape kind of thing. That one was like a narrow second for me.
Yeah, I think second for me would probably be Strange.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a real heartbreaking song. And again, it's quite simple lyrics, you know. Strangers become friends, friends into lovers, then strangers again. But the way she delivers it and the musicality behind it, it's just turned into this real like heartbreaking moments, and it gets you really emotional the way she sings it to you. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that as well, because I've literally written in my notes that it gave me a rom-com vibe, and if it isn't used in the next big rom-com, someone needs to get fired.
Yeah, no, it's quite cinematic, isn't it? Yeah.
It's cinematic, and it just slips in so easily. You can imagine like a rainy street with someone walking along all upset, and that playing and it being iconic, you know. That song for me is like a real power shift on the record. You know, she's talking about like what is that power shift from, you know, strangers to friends, friends to lovers, and then it dissipating to strangers again. You'd never see this person again, and that almost like seasonal shift in two people's relationship. I really enjoyed listening to that one. Yeah, I liked how like the lyrical content in this one was more in the chorus.
Yeah.
The verses are very sparse and very nothingy. Again, it's just more how she's delivering it, and then the content of what she's saying is in the chorus, and that's usually the opposite way around. And this is where we start like almost hearing them playing with the pop form. You know, obviously, as I say, the content that you're listening to is in the chorus rather than just like a throwaway hook, which is in the verse.
Yeah, same with Love Is Back in a way, isn't it? Basically, the verse is just a saying Love Is Back repeatedly. And then, the content comes in the chorus, I suppose. But another one which is quite cinematic, as you were saying, there should be in a film. I think A Kiss could be potentially like a Bond theme, maybe if it's a bit quicker.
It's like you're reading off my notes here, you know. I put, it's like a Bond theme, but well better.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is about that song? The tension just grabs you and draws you in, and you feel like you want to get closer and closer and closer and closer and just really take that in. It's so morose, and like it just has such a powerlessness to it. Again, that theme of like the power shift between two people. I think this one was, you know, she is powerless, and that voice break in the middle 8 genuinely gave me goosebumps, and it's not because it's snowing. You know, I thought that was absolutely unbelievable. That really high vocal, you know, just an unbelievable vocal performance.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any other tracks or high points or low points on the album for you?
Yeah, a high point for me was Beloved. It's got like a real 1940s sort of thing going on, even down to like the reverb that's being used on the track. It's this really reminiscent of a time gone by. And one thing I think they've done really well on numerous times, as I've kind of mentioned before, kind of alluding to the production and stuff, is they've used elements of things that have been done, like the Amy Winehouse Ronson sort of thing, like the jazzy nature of like maybe Amy Winehouse's first album, and this kind of 1940s vibe in Beloved. And rather than resting on that, they've used bits and moved it forward, moved these genres kind of forward and brought it to the new era, if that makes sense. They've really made a statement of like hair sound, and being able to use elements from the past and bring them into this new period of pop music, whatever that means. I just really enjoy that they haven't just rested on these things. They've used them and they've almost paid homage to them, but they've moved them on as well. As I said before, in The Promise, where they've used a drum break that's a little bit Ronsony, but they've made it sound so new. In Beloved, they've moved the genre on, which I really, it's brave. You know, I like a brave record, and these decisions are brave decisions, especially on your debut record. And I really respect that. To everyone that was involved, I really respect that decision.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned the word a couple of times in the past few minutes, and I think cinematic is probably a good way to describe the album as a whole, especially the slower songs. And as you say, Beloved sounds like it could be like from an old school Hollywood movie.
Yeah,
that sort of cinematic swirling of the strings,
and
the production on it really sort of lends itself to that. And then A Little Love, I know you were saying, you know, it's very syncable and it's a bit predictable, but you know, again, that sort of sounds like it could be in a Disney movie.
Yeah, definitely. So overall, what's your conclusion? How did you find the record? What's your final gambit?
Yeah, I think, as I say, first thing to say, she's a phenomenal talent, and I really did love the record. But I do think that it could have been a bit braver. I think Jamie Hartman, the producer, he's worked on stuff like Human, Rag and Bone Man, sort of obviously songs which are built for commercial success, and I think maybe that's why they've got him in, because it's their first record. But it's also maybe slightly more middle of the road, but very good middle of the road, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And again, comparing it to Amy Winehouse, her first album was similar, maybe. It wasn't groundbreaking, and it was only until she teamed up with Mark Ronson and they created Back to Black together that it elevated her into this superstar. And I think with the right handling of her career and pairing her up with the right songwriter and producer, that could happen for Celeste as well. But for this album, I don't think it's worked out that way. However, it's her first album. It's got to number one. She's got all these accolades, and I think it's maybe more of a springboard for her career, and what a springboard to have.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page. Really, you can't listen to this and just think it's mediocre, because it's not. On first listen, you do. I think that thing of like it's just a collection of songs that don't have that much of a theme. I had to go looking for the themes in this record, and maybe I've made them up out of thin air, if you know what I mean. It wasn't incredibly obvious that there was a through line for the record, that there was a statement almost, maybe. And maybe that goes back to your bravery thing, and that like maybe there could have been a bit more of a statement just with everything. There could have been like an extra 5% possibly, that would have made this less of just a springboard. But I think you've touched on it really, really well there, that as long as the team get the marriage of her and ex-producer correct for the next 2 releases, she could be in the stratosphere. She really could. She is that good of an artist, I think, that just needs that like spark, if you know what I mean, that meeting of minds that has happened in the past for singers. It needs that, and I have full faith that it will happen for her. But yeah, I think for me it just fell short as being like perfect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Mark Ronson is the right producer for her. He may or may not be, but yeah, I do think at the moment she's more in the Paloma Faith bracket than the Amy Winehouse bracket.
Yeah, definitely.
I sort of want her to go more to Amy Winehouse, because I know she's got the potential. That voice is just incredible, and it needs to be nurtured and given the right opportunities. Yeah,
I mean the name that springs to mind for me is Pharrell. Like, I think them two minds, that voice and his mind, working together on something would just be incredible, if you know what I mean. I think it could bring him back into the real conversation. I think he's kind of fell away a little bit in recent times, but I think it could bring him back big time, and obviously give a life in music rather than maybe a career in music, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have a rating out of 5?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 3.5 for this one. As I say, fantastic album, but for me, not quite brave enough. But I do really love it, and that's the weird thing. Like, it's a great album, and it's one that really caught my attention as soon as I listened to it. And I think it's the voice mainly that carries it, more so than the songs maybe, because you just can't help but ignore that. Yeah,
I think it's the voice and you sound so horrendous when you say this, but the vibe, like there's a vibe to the record, isn't there? And one thing that I'm really excited for is to go and see her. We got tickets the other day, and all things going well with COVID, we're going to go and see her this year. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see how all these songs translate live, because I've seen some live videos of her and her band, and that makes me really excited to see musicians of that level just playing with stuff and just having fun. That's what is getting me excited about this, because that's what you get the vibe, the feeling of, if you know what I mean. Really, really good musicians playing sort of simple stuff, but playing with it and having fun with it, and that's what excites me.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got a rating out of 5?
Yeah, I probably would have gone for a 4. I think that's, as you say, it's mainly based on a vocal performance, and the second half of the record really rescued it for me. There's just some tracks on that second half that really do it for me. They're right up my alley. So yeah, I'd go for a solid 4. Just a few skippable tracks on the record, but just made it fall away a little bit for me. Yeah, so that about wraps us up for the episode. Thanks so much for listening. It really does mean a lot that people are listening to these episodes that we're doing. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast places, then please just maybe share it. It helps us a lot. You know, we want to get to as many people as we can and increase our conversation and just speak to as many people as we can. So yeah, like and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, where the album review show. Just type it into any of the search engines really and you'll find us. But yeah, this has been a really fun one.
Yeah, and on Instagram as well. Definitely follow us on there if you are on Instagram, because we do a Friday night live every Friday where we discuss all the new releases, singles and albums from that week. And any music news. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out, and we're hoping to get some interviews lined up on there as well in the near future.
Yeah, it's basically like your Spotify Discover Weekly, but better because it's someone talking about it.
Yeah, so thank you very much for tuning in and listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back with a new one soon.
Bye.